All right. Well, welcome back, everyone. Um, for those who were with us, I hope you had fun with your breakout rooms and then with the updates. We now, usually we go into the speaker, but for various reasons, we have a little slightly different schedule this year. I mean, this week, this month. Rick sadly can't be with us. I think he's been with us at every single meeting, both live and virtual. So we miss him, but he very generously offered to send us a recording to give us his update on maps and what they're up to. Um, Means we can't ask him questions. I think he says that in his recording, but we're still very lucky to have him. And if anyone has questions for him, certainly put them in the chat and I can do my best to relay them to him, or I might even be able to answer them myself. I don't know if there's anyone else on the MAPS team on the call right now, but if we see the questions, we can try and answer them, but no one can answer questions like Rick, that's for sure. So I'll let Sherry play the recording of Rick. And then we'll have Amanda coming on from England in about 45 minutes, or maybe a little earlier, because Rick won't go on as long since he's recorded and not with us in person. All right. Thank you, Sherry.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be able to join you in this way. Unfortunately, it's recorded, not live, so I won't be around to ask questions to and discuss things. So that'll have to wait for next time. The reason is I'm flying out tomorrow. I'm making this Saturday night. I'm flying out tomorrow to California for a series of fundraising meetings, staff meetings, but the main theme is fundraising, and that's the main thing that's I'm going to be talking about today, is how we're doing that. We're steadily increasing our enrollment in our second phase 3 study, and it still looks like sometime in April of 2022 will be the interim analysis of that study, and then in October will be the completion of that study, and that's the last thing we need to go really well in order to get a FDA approval. And so, of course, it'll take about a year or so after we get that final person, the final piece of data to organize it. But it looks like we're still on track for end of 2023 for approval. And what we're anticipating is middle of 2024 is this golden moment of sustainability, where income from the sale of MDMA by prescription to therapists who will treat patients covered by insurance, where that will cover our operational costs of our what we think will be around 200 people by then, and we'll also start generating additional resources for more research, for more education, for more of the mission of MAPS, which is mass mental health, drug development, mass mental health, drug policy reform. So we're at this critical period where we've talked about a bridge to sustainability, and that's $50 million a year for 3 years that we're trying to raise, and that's more than we've raised so far in 35 years. That's 130 million or so in grants and in donations. But we've never been as far along, and the tantalizing sense of prescription approval and psychedelic clinics and healings all over the world is more and more realistic, although still much work needs to be done. And as the saying goes, many a slip twixt the cup and the lip. Many a slip twixt the cup and the lip. But we're paying careful attention. And so the first thing I want to share is that there's going to be this incredible study inside the Houston Veterans Administration, part of this mainstreaming. Inside the Houston Veterans Administration is going to be a psilocybin PTSD study funded by the Texas State Legislature.
What?
And they've
What?
also required people at Baylor Medical and to do a analysis of the MDMA literature to present to the public health people, so that they will evaluate that once we're ready to reschedule in Texas after FDA and DEA reschedule. So this has been funded, and it's Lynette Averill is going to be the researcher. She spent 7 years at the National Center for PTSD in Yale. She lives in Houston, works at Baylor and at the Houston VA, and is very well connected and respected. And what she's going to be doing is this study that will be treatment as usual with psilocybin assisted therapy, with the psilocybin coming from USONA. What we've been realizing right from the very second, of course, is why didn't we get MDMA as part of this? How did that slip through our fingers? And I know it's a plant, and MDMA is not a plant. But in any case, we are now working with members of the Texas State Legislature to allocate funds that they've now got federal funds of $9 billion or whatever, something like that, between now and the end of October, it seems like. Once the governor calls the legislature into session, they have a month, and it's all this horse trading. And so we've already got a preliminary indication that there's a good chance that they will fund this $1.4 million study of this MDMA arm. If not, I think it's a top priority to get it funded elsewhere, so that then what we could have is inside the Veterans Administration a study comparing treatment as usual with psilocybin assisted therapy for PTSD and with MDMA assisted therapy for PTSD. So we're tantalizingly close to that. We'll know by the end of October. There's bipartisan support for it. I think that's the amazing thing. With all the things that the Texas legislature has done, there is this bipartisan support. And also, Congressman Dan Crenshaw has just filed a bill in the House to require the Department of Defense to do psychedelic research for PTSD and develop a grant program to fund it. Dan Crenshaw is a former Navy SEAL. I spoke at his event in Houston for his constituents, this Healthcare Innovation Summit, with the former head of the FDA as the opening speaker, and it went great. And so I think there is this chance of starting to get more official governmental support, and also we're trying to get permission still for the first active duty soldier to go into treatment. We've had over 45 vets. Bob Parsons, the founder of GoDaddy, has funded expanded access site, 5 subjects, active duty soldiers, if we can recruit them. So now it's free for these 5 soldiers, and they'd be referred through Walter Reed or probably that way. So it's just incredible this way in which we are reaching people in more official capacity who understand what we're trying to do. I just was on a panel with Deepak Chopra. He's outspoken supporter of this, but also a woman that was senior up in the VA in their research. And I think hearing Deepak's strong support for psychedelics and others, I feel like things are changing, and we are within weeks of starting giving the first person MDMA inside the VA, either Loma Linda VA or the Bronx VA. Right. So we are trying to see where we can do with this bill that's just been filed to get federal funding for that. There is this group therapy study that we're still planning funded already, and hoping to start early next year at the Portland VA. So just to mention, that's really good. This $12.9 million grant that we got from marijuana from the state of Michigan for a marijuana study in veterans is a real thing, and we are working on selecting the marijuana, selecting the devices to be used for it. One group is going to probably get smoked and smoke pipes and vaporizers. They can choose which ones they want to use at any time of day, switch whatever, use up to I think 2 grams per day, and then another group is going to get that this very sophisticated inhalation device that measures everything that you smoke and wirelessly transmits it to spreadsheets, and so each person exactly when they consumed, how much they consumed, what part of the time of the day, without anybody having to do anything. And I think it's not false precision, it's unnecessary precision, because I think really patient choice is what we need, and that's why we'll have this other group that'll get either vaporizers or pipes, and they could use either one. And then treatment as usual. So that's what we'll be comparing it against. And in this case, it's placebo marijuana. So, and whatever therapy they get, this is not a therapy study combined with the marijuana. So this would just be alcohol wash to take out the terpenes and cannabinoids. And people still smoke, and sometimes people get confused as to what they're really getting. So while we're doing that, I just came back from a conference in Berlin. It was the first big psychedelic conference. It was fantastic. It was our German team. We've started MAPS Deutschland as a nonprofit inside Germany. We're screening patients. Have yet to find the first patients to be treated inside the Charité. Our Dutch team was there. Um, there was people from the European Parliament, lobbyists and others that are trying to work on the European Parliament level. There was this woman in charge of licensing new drugs for BPRG, which is the German equivalent of the FDA, on a panel with Chuck Raison from USONA and myself. And it was just great to have this opportunity to speak with her in this um, public setting and just talk about um, what are the methodological challenges, what are our real challenges in training therapists. And I talked to her about the need for some sort of approval to give therapists MDMA as part of their training outside of a protocol, so it's not so expensive. Some kind of way to do that, or just the principle that therapists should have their own experience. And she understood that. I was very hopeful. Um, New ideas, MDMA for postpartum depression. There's people there that want to study that. MDMA for depression. Um, there's interests in um, various venture capital firms were there, you know, looking to invest. And so where we're at and what we've been mostly doing is, the science is proceeding. We're just about to start the eating disorder studies with MDMA in 3 locations. And but the main thing has been trying to figure out how do we go forward as with the resources that we need to commercialize in the U.S., globalize, go to Europe and start trying to go elsewhere, and then reach this sustainability point. And then we've got this engine of research, education, drug policy reform that's sustainable without further donations. And then it stores up funds so when the drug goes generic, there's still resources, although maybe it doesn't store up funds. Maybe it invested in other indications or other drugs, or we'll figure out our strategy as things actually develop. But really, and there's substantial funds to be made as a generic, just like that. So, and it's 10 years data exclusivity in Europe. So, what we want to do is other indications of MDMA, and so what we're looking for now still is this idea of 50 or so million from donations or philanthropic loans. Then the rest seems like it might be from partnerships with other companies that bring us into new indications, bring us new allies. The first one, and we've sent out a press release, so if anybody wants to look at it, it's up on their MAPS website. It's a company called Wisana, and it's about MDMA for traumatic brain injury, which some of the veterans have, and others too, and it seems like it may help. We have some good, favorable, promising early data on secondary measures that, maybe there's this healing effect. Daniel Carcillo used to be a hockey player, won the Stanley Cup twice, but was a fighter and had, I think he said, 166 concussions. And as part of his healing himself, he stumbled on medicinal mushrooms, CBD, and also psilocybin psychedelics. And that's been part of his healing. And he's got this incredible group of athletes, and Mike Tyson, who smoked 5-MeO-DMT and is now more peaceful. They've got quite a group of people. I think it will deepen our connection to parts of society that we don't have as fluid connections with as normal. And what it does is it will get us looking sooner at traumatic brain injury. And again, is it MDMA the best one? What does it do? And then over time, they'll look at psilocybin, or they'll look at medicinal mushrooms, or who knows what. But what they're doing is, because we are in phase 3, the only group in phase 3, and we are in all of these regulatory discussions, we're closer to market than anybody else in these companies. And so they're raising all this money without a clear sense of what do they do with it, how can they implement it. They don't have a team of, we've now got 110 or something people from the Benefit Corp, that it's this incredible pharma team. We even have a person whose job title is talent acquisition specialist. So, yeah, we got incredible business teams where we're evaluating all these proposals. So we're trying to quantify public benefit and use all of this to try to figure out making decisions, what's available, what's not. And so with WISANA, what basic idea we're talking about is that, and just to say, it's kind of an astonishing new world, but we signed an agreement to see if we can come to agreement before the end of the year. Upon signing the agreement, we got $1.5 million to MAPS as an initial payment for what we will use it for is building up our business team to evaluate this particular business proposal and other business proposals, and then we'll use the remainder for whatever we want, basic operating expenses or whatever, unrestricted funds. Then what we were trying to figure out is, and it does seem like for insurance coverage and for clinics that they may be building, that we'll be able to differentiate who gets treatment for TBI, who gets treatment for PTSD, even though sometimes people have both. But whichever one is their main presenting one, that's how it counts. And we would be sharing some income with them from the sale of MDMA for traumatic brain injury. And if indeed we come to agreement, they give us 28.5 million, so that'll be 30 million. Again, just for us licensing our data exclusively to them, all of our MDMA data, everything of the safety stuff that we've gotten so far, that's our head start. So we're looking for partners with people that have other indications, and then we can spread therapeutic use of MDMA. Or we somehow or other raise more funds and do that ourselves, but we will also be wanting partners in different ways, and we're exploring this other big, well, okay, let me finish with WISANA, sorry. So they give us this money, and then they pay for the research to make explore MDMA maybe 50 million or something, and then if it works, it becomes FDA approved, then we market it and we use all of our commercialization team and then split the revenue. So that's the kind of deal. So where are the ethical issues here? What kind of pressures do we face to return? These are investors. These are not donors to MAPS. They have different interests. We will work on a timetable for when we get this done. We have to make sure that we still that we are capable of prioritizing our own phase 3 research as fast as possible while also doing the marijuana study, doing the TBI, and I believe that we're growing to handle that. That's the only solution, is to hire more people. But I think we can do that, manage it. We're bringing in way more expertise from pharma companies, and it's just amazing. So my sense is that ideally we'd get the first 50 million from philanthropy. We need to really focus on training the therapists properly and getting them an MDMA experience. And there may be some legal ways that we can do this with the FDA, but they have to agree to it. And we're exploring that in different countries in different ways. But I think that's the key challenge is MDMA experiences for therapists as the patient. And how do we scale that at an affordable cost? The other parts of the education we can do, and we could supervise people more, but we want them to be more connected directly on their own. And people just say how highly efficient and useful that is as a tool for education. So that's the overview. The next big moment of everything changing is in April, it looks like, of next year, where we get the interim analysis for the second phase 3 study. So that's just something to keep in mind. The risks and everything, our likelihood of success, we think it's 90% or so, but at that moment when we know if it's looking good, then our estimates might go up. So it's a terrific time. I want to say one last thing, just in case Susan Walker is watching part of this, but so for I was the opening talk at the closing plenary at the conference in Berlin at 9:30 in the morning, and I was doing emails late at night until about 3 in the morning, and there was 2 of them that I cut out and made into slides and opened up my talk with them. So it was two surprising emails. One was from Susan, and what it was from one of the patients treated here in Boston, and it was a Marine pilot, and it was incredible, the story of healing that this person had to say. But um, to paraphrase it, what he said was that um, he was like a walking skeleton and had been for a long time. Uh, and that he had all these struggles that he talked about that were overwhelming. Um, but during his first MDMA experience, he felt something different. When he said the word struggle, he burst into tears. And he hadn't been able to cry for over 15 years. And he wrote, and then I knew I would live. And then I knew I would live. This is the very early part of his treatment, just feeling that what the MDMA does, that he's able now to work stuff out. Got massive stuff still to work out, but then I knew I would live. So that's the hope. That's the promise. That's why we are trying to do this. Then the other was from Charlene Justice, who's my assistant, and it was saying another friend of mine has committed suicide. I need to go to the wedding. I need to go to the funeral. It's a 3.5 hour drive. I won't be able to work at these times. And he was a veteran. So that's the urgency. We have the hope and the promise and the urgency. And I'd like to leave you with that as I get ready to fly out to California tomorrow.
Great. Many thanks, Rick. You're in the air now, and hope you're having safe travels. And as always, huge thanks and gratitude for all you do to keep this work moving ahead. You really are the leader of all of this.